Hi, welcome to another virtual Come and Taste It. Here's John Bratcher and I'm Connor Brown, and we're going to talk about McPherson Winery out of Lubbock, Texas today.
Kim McPherson's his family really pioneered the industry. Kim's father, Doc McPherson, was a chemistry professor at Texas Tech. He founded Llano Estacado Winery in 1976 along with Bob Reed from the horticulture department at Tech. So that was the first winery bonded in Texas since Prohibition. We actually started the McPherson label making it at Capra in 1998. In 2007, Kim bought in downtown Lubbock an old Coca-Cola bottling plant built in the 1930s, and he's converted that into one of the coolest wineries in the country. Kim has been very instrumental, and we'll taste some of these today, very instrumental in getting people more comfortable with planting things that are not Bordeaux and Burgundy varietals. The Sangiovese, which we will have later, I'll talk about that, but his dad was the first to plant that in Texas.
Wow.
And Kim's, he's really, don't mean to brag on Kim overly, but he's really done a lot the last few years in terms of national attention. For the James Beard Awards, they put breweries, wineries, and distilleries all in one category. And he was a semifinalist in that category in 2019 and 2020. If you'd like to start with the Marsanne, we can start with that. Marsanne being a grape that's normally blended in the Rhone Valley in France, and we do blend it with a Le Capon White, which we do, and some other grapes. But Kim likes to do a few things, separate, smaller productions. I think this particular production was only about 400 and some odd cases. It is all stainless steel with the grapes that Kim works with. He feels that because of the aromatics and everything, that if you oak them, you kind of lose the flavor and everything and the aromatics that you get from these Rhone varietals. Marsanne, where Roussanne is a little more citrusy, Viognier, a little more tropical peach pear. With Marsanne, you get maybe a little peach apricot, almost a slight nuttiness to it. But it's really, I think it's very nice by itself. And since we don't do Chardonnay, I think Marsanne and Roussanne can a little different flavor profile, but you can usually give those to a Chardonnay drinker unless they really like a big oaky style, then that's different. Very bright fruit, the complexities come out in it. And again, I think like every Texas winery, we think about Texas cuisine when you're making wines, and this is certainly with seafood, but I like this. Not native to Texas, but I like this with Asian dishes.
Oh, it's excellent. You get a lot of that bright kind of like those really clear, clean flavors on the finish that you're talking about. And that bright acidity on the end is just super refreshing.
Well, his feeling about whites is, he said, I always want you to taste grapes and not what a winemaker has tried to manipulate it into with oak or other things. So I think this is it's a good representation of what the variety is.
Absolutely.
But,
so Marsanne, we're kind of talking how we like to do, things that grow best in Texas. Marsanne, Albarino, Roussanne. We don't do the Chardonnay because obviously Chardonnay is one of those more difficult to really get the full effects out of, right? So this has got to be one of the most full-bodied whites I've had that has like a lot of rigidity and structure out of Texas, probably because of that reason.
Well, the High Plains if you're familiar with the Lubbock area, the High Plains, it's like the top of this barrel, it's very flat, but you're about 35 to 3,600 feet above sea level. So you get the hot days, cooler nights, and it is warmer out there than it used to be. But it's the Mediterranean varietals that do well there, the hot weather grapes, which again are the Spanish, the Italian, the French Rhone Valley grapes. It's why the Lubbock area, we understand why everybody wants a tasting room. They want to be down the hill country, of course you have such a great setting here. But about probably 80%, perhaps more, of all the grapes in Texas are in the High Plains. And the growers up there, they're very comfortable now with growing things that are not Cabernet, Chardonnay, and Merlot. They're comfortable growing Italian, Spanish, Rhone varietals. We had one of our growers put in Picpoul several years ago, which is really another fun grape up there. Kim is doing his version of Vino Verde that we call Verde Verde, but again, it's the hot days, cool nights, you've got a sandy, well-drained loam soil, and one of the reasons Chardonnay doesn't work well, we are prone to early freezes sometimes in October, late freezes in the spring, and Chardonnay buds out early. But again, I think the quality's more up and down, where these The Rhone, the Italian, Spanish, I think are much more consistent year to year.
The Lake Upon Rosé. So I'd like to say all of the Lake Upons, but I'm sure there's more than 3.
Well, there's only 3. There's this was Kim's idea several years ago. He said, I want to do something that has its own identity. They were going to be Rhone varietal blends. These are red, white, and this rosé. And again, the rosé, of course, is all stainless steel, as is the Lake Upon White. But rosé is one that Kim really likes making. He likes rosés himself. We do it in a dry style. Thank you. So it maintains, you can taste the grapes in it. This one, I will double check, it'll change a little year to year, but this particular, and we do put the varietals on the back label, so you see the percentages. This is Cinsault, Carignan, and Grenache.
Excellent.
This has sometimes had a little bit of Mourvedre in it, but it'll vary year to year. But again, I think with Texas cuisine, rosés are perfect with spicy dishes, Tex-Mex, barbecue. They're just refreshing.
Yeah.
But again, like it's Lake Upon means the friends or the buddies. Kim in the beginning said, I think these grapes would be blended in the Rhone Valley. Let's call it the friends because they get along well. So the Lake Upon, a little bit different label. This has a vineyard on the front. It has the McPherson name, of course, but slightly different than our other labels. But as I said, Kim wanted to give this really its own identity for these 3 wines.
Excellent. And the 3 grapes that are used to make this, they're typically kind of blending grapes everywhere else. So that's kind of that's a really neat kind of ingenuity sort of innovation, I'd say.
Well, and Kim has used Carignan, which not as well known as Grenache, Mourvedre, a little bit better known than Cinsault, and Carignan. But Carignan was one of his dad's early grapes that he experimented with, and kind of to honor his dad, we always have Carignan in something.
That's really cool. I love that.
But again, this I think is rosés are they're refreshing. I think for people. White Zinfandel blush kind of gave, in the old rosés from back in the 60s and 70s in this country, which were very sweet, it kind of gave rosé a bad name, which it doesn't deserve. I mean, the true rosés from Europe have always been dry, and this is a good example, I think, of that, where you still get the flavor of the grape, the kind of cherry, strawberry, berry. Once in a while, you'll get a little pomegranate out of one of these, but just really refreshing wines. You're discovering it. If you go into stores now, you see more and more rosés available. You have a good selection here, and you'll find a sweet one occasionally. But I think with the dry rosé, where you get the fruit of the grape, is what makes them so flavorful. But again, so food friendly.
Yeah. Well, to me, they're just kind of what got me started on them is kind of learning the process of making it and kind of bleeding the red grapes and how you're getting this beautiful pink juice from. Red grapes. Yeah,
and Kim will have grapes picked to make rosé with, and he does give it skin contact. It's not a saunier process where they bleed it off the reds. He will actually crush it, give it just enough skin contact to pick up the color, and then go straight into stainless steel with it.
It's just always kind of that middle of the road, maybe sort of best for reds and white drinkers. That's what really got me onto it because I was having a war with red wine. It just wasn't doing it for me anymore. So I was getting really into white wine, and it's not that I discovered rosé, but I found one that I really liked, and it was actually it wasn't the Lake Upon, but it was one of your other rosés.
We started out rosé of Syrah in the beginning, and then I think it was a rosé, maybe Grenache Syrah, and then when Kim decided to do the Lake Upon series, that's when this one is our probably 4th or 5th vintage under this label.
Wow, I love it.
It's really funny if you look at the label, you see the vineyard, and right up at the top, someone asked me one time, they said, is that there's a building at the top of the vineyard, and they said, is that the chateau? And I said, well, not too many chateaus in Lubbock. That's actually Andy Timmons, the grower, that's his barn. That's actually a shot of his vineyard.
Oh, wow.
And that's actually his barn at the top, but it has a little bit of a chateau look to it, which again goes along with the Lake Upon, the buddies or the friends name for that. So
that's very cool.
You will notice on the Sangiovese, this does have a cork. We do screw caps on most of our wines, but with Kim, he really, there's a lot of history with Sangiovese and his father, and he said, I really want to keep, just for image, if no other reason, I want a cork in this. When we do reserve wines, limited edition wines, we will still do a cork with those. But his dad, Doc, planted Sangiovese in Lubbock, I think probably at least 35 years ago. One battle that I've never won with Kim to go to Screw Cap is on this one.
On this one, huh?
I went to a really interesting component tasting years ago in Dallas for Sangiovese, and when I looked at the components, I thought, wow, that's really kind of interesting. And the guy had done like cherry licorice whips, white pepper, charcoal. He had a little tobacco box, and we smelled all of these things individually, and then he mixed it all together, and we smelled that. And then when you smelled the Sangiovese, you could really pick out these components. With Chianti, you get a little more earthy wines. This is a little bit more bright, I think, cherry, kind of dark cherry, fruits to it. But you do get a little bit hint of that pepper. This will be in oak about 12 to 14 months typically. When you taste Sangiovese, I think you can see why you put it with red sauce and Italian foods. But in Texas, we can do this with barbecue. Love it with smoked meats, smoked sausage, even barbecued chicken. The old rules about red wine with beef and white with fish, that's thank goodness out the window. It's whatever you like with whatever you like.
Like you said earlier with like barbecue and just Texas cuisine, you can just see it right next to it. You can smell the brisket, but taste the wine. It's amazing.
Well, I think, like I said, you kind of get that dark cherry, the kind of dark berry fruits with it, a little bit of pepper to it. But again, Kim, once in a while he'll make very limited production of a red wine, but Kim likes wines that have very soft mouthfeel. So I think this is a good example of being, it has tannins, but they're soft. The structure's there, but again, it's very smooth red wine.
Right.
And that's what he strives for with all of his reds, is having something that really is easy to drink.
Yeah, it's nice and full body, but it's not overpowering.
Yeah. These wines, I think, this is why I think people drink wine. If you ask him, what do you want people to think about your wines, he will always say, well, I hope you think they taste good.
Well, John, thank you so much for being here this morning and tasting a little wine with me and doing our fourth virtual Come and Taste It. It's been a real honor, and it's been nice to know you.
My pleasure. It's always nice to be over here, and places like this you're a lot of the part of the success, because you do get people who, they can come here and taste and experience what Texas wines are.
Absolutely.
So it helps the reputation, helps us all. So thank you.
Cheers.
My pleasure being here.
My honor to have you.
You bet.